Hello everyone. I started a little bit early. Hope everyone can hear me. I am on Instagram Live and I'm excited to be here and I'm actually going to be doing a drawing in a few minutes, so we'll see if anybody comes on. But hopefully everyone has had a great weekend. It was a special weekend with the commemoration of 9/11. And it's hard to believe it's been 20 years since that happened, and I was, kind of reflecting on that day and what was going on with me that day, and, it was real heavy day, very heavy day. It's not a day I would like to relive at any time, but I'm glad that we are, we're still keeping the memory alive of those people who perished that day. Everyone has an interesting story if you were around at that time, whether you were in school or working. I was based in Atlanta at the time, and it was just really such a mind-boggling day, and I cannot believe, it feels like it was just yesterday, but I can't believe that it's been 20 years, and there's so much to be said about what happened that day and how we all came together, but I think that it's wonderful that we still do what we can to relive and retell the stories, and particularly to honor those that perished that day and all the brave people who helped out, whether it was in the Pittsburgh area, New York, or the Washington, D.C. area, and not living at any of those places at that time, and watching what was unfolding and having loved ones in two of the cities that were affected. That was a pretty rough day. So my thoughts are with the families, with the people that were involved with that whole situation, who really worked through some emotions, and I'm so glad to see that we're still honoring them, and I hope that continues. And as well as the kind of energy that came out of that, there were so many people that really helped out, so many people that tried to forge alliances, and there was a lot of feeling of camaraderie, of hope that happened after that. It was beautiful in so many ways, and so many ways we also had some challenges that came up too. But yeah, I can't believe it's been 20 years. Anywho, I am going to do our Creativity Oracle draw of the day, and see what we can do. And what I usually ask the cards, this oracle was developed to help folks with their creativity and their creative life. And so each week I try to draw a card that kind of guides us for the week regarding our creativity, whether we're stuck or whether we're working on something new or something old or whatever. So I try to share this with people so they can, get some guidance. So we will do that. And by the way, for those of you who don't know me, I am Sharon Burton. I am the CEO and founder of Spark Your Creative Coaching. I work with creatives, mostly over 40, who are trying to either reclaim their creative life or start a new creative adventure for their lives, as well as help folks that get stuck. And what we're going to be doing tonight, in addition to this little drawing here, is talk about one way to get unstuck, and that is through yoga. So, how you doing, Dee Dee, Sandra? It's good to see you. I'm about to do the drawing of the Creativity Oracle, which kind of gives us a sense of what direction we may want to go with our creativity this week. Hello. And as I said earlier, we're going to talk to Sherrellmoore today, this evening, and talk about yoga and kind of answer any questions that you have about yoga, because even though it's been around for a long time, a lot of people may have questions, may be confused by it, as a lot of people have never tried it. I've been at yoga for quite some time, so it's been something that has really been a great tool for me as far as my creativity. So let's see what we can do. What do we need to know about our creativity today from the Creativity Oracle? All right, this is what our card looks like. And this is what it says, and I'll read it. Communication. The clarity, interactivity, and timing of communications is critical. And so we'll read what it says in the Oracle Guide and see how we can make sense of that for our week. And this is number 31. And I love this Oracle Guide. It's by, this whole deck is by Amy Zerner, who is a wonderful artist out of, I think, England, and Monte Farber. And she does all of the artwork in that. Communication. The clarity, interactivity, and timing of communications is critical. The communication card is an indication that how well or how poorly we communicate our vision to those with whom we wish to share is the key to understanding the situation in question. Communicating with another person creatively requires that we present to them what we wish to be communicated in a way that they can best understand and respond to. This requires us to see them as they really are and tailor our communications to their needs and ability to understand. Sometimes this card can mean that other people are not communicating well with you, and this needs to be remedied. Communication is the very soul of creativity. It can burst seemingly impervious bubble that often exists around even the most creative projects conceived and executed without the thought of or interaction with other people. So, when we talk about our creativity and about communication, that's the message for today. And hold on just a second. I have my creativity candle going. I think this is important when you're dealing with collaborative projects, but it also is important with anything from exhibitions to working with gallery people or other people in your industry, and particularly if you're working on a major creative project. Is there communication problems? Is there misinterpretation of your vision? And if so, how can you work through that? So that's why this is so important when we talk about creativity and about communication. So I invite you to really look at the communication that's actually happening around a creative project that you're working on. You can also consider that as the communication around those around you as far as their understanding of your creativity and the importance of it in your life. If it's a family members or a job or whatever, being able to communicate your needs to continue to create, to be able to execute time to create your work. Sometimes people don't respect that, and sometimes we have to be proactive in communicating our needs as far as what we do as creative people. So that's something to really take a look at. So anyway, our message is communication this week. Hi, Sherrell. I think you may want to ask to be a part of the, request to be in your video. All right, let's see if we can do it. Let's see. I think Sherrell is joining us.
Hi,
What's up,
Sharon.
girl? How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
How did everything go yesterday with the yoga hike?
Gosh, it was amazing. It was more than I could have even hoped for. It was a great experience.
I saw the pictures. That it was really cool. I really wanted to be there so bad.
Well,
It turned out
we're hoping to collaborate and do something again soon. So keep your eyes
okay.
open for that.
Yeah. And what we're talking about, there was those of you that know me well know that I am a big hiker, and Sherrell did a hike yoga event yesterday, and I wanted so much to go because it was actually canceled the last part of August, and then it happened again, and I couldn't go, and I was mad, but it's all right. It's all right. It happens.
Exactly. That's right. It does. It happens sometimes.
Yeah. Well, we'll wait a few minutes to see if anybody else joins us. We have
Okay.
one of my artist friends, Sandra, is with us. And we'll also be taping this too. So I will be playing this back
Oh,
on my Instagram. So if folks miss it tonight, they will get the chance to look on it on my feed. And if you want to regram it, you can do it too.
okay, great.
So how was the rest of your weekend?
Pretty relaxing. Pretty relaxing. Hi, Dee Dee.
Like people have a lot going on. Let's see. Just trying to get my notes together. I
Okay,
just
not a
did,
problem.
I just did a creatively oracle draw, and this is our card for the communication,
Okay,
and that's sort of our message for those that are creative as far as creative projects and that sort of thing. So I do that
cool.
every Sunday.
Great
So
start for the week.
yes, 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 yes. All right, well, let's get started,
Sure.
and people will get in where they fit in, or they'll catch the replay. I just wanted to sort of introduce this topic to everyone. Once again, I'm Sharon Burton. I'm CEO and founder of Spark Your Creative Coaching. I work with creatives, whether they're musicians, artists, writers, dancers, whatever you are in the cultural creative sphere, and help people move past their creative blocks and gain confidence in their creative work, and primarily work with people over 40. And I really choose that group because a lot of us, including, and I'm putting myself in that, um, it was when we were growing up, we were not as encouraged as many others in other generations to pursue our creative life. And because of that, many of us missed out on really following through with our creative practice. And it's interesting, coaching people, a lot of us, we just did not develop the confidence that we wanted or needed. We might have done it as high schoolers or maybe early in college or early part of our lives, but then we got caught up in making money and living and surviving and all that kind of stuff. And because of that, a lot of us lost our mojo, but a lot of us know that deep down we were creative people, whether we were, you know, whether we were, I don't know, um, might have did a little bit of art school, or did a little bit of something. We still were creative people, and we're finding later in life, as we face empty nest syndrome, as we move towards retirement, or what many of us maybe are inspired by the younger generation. One thing about the millennials, they've been encouraged to exercise their creativity all the time. And I think that's a great thing. But a lot of times people need help. They need to know that they too can be a creative force, and they can exercise their creativity, and that it's okay. You can give yourself permission to be a creative being. And so I work with people that are over 40 because, they have the time, they have the interest, they just need a cheerleader, and they need someone to make them feel that it's okay to do this. So that's what I do. And for National Yoga Month, which is September,
Yay.
I thought it would be, yes, as a yogi, um, but most importantly, just to really be honest, to address that we are living through some really challenging times. And when we, who has the time, girl? I have no time. I know that. I know that's right. Sewing for my sanity. Um, when we're dealing with challenging times, it's even more of a level that can prevent us from really showing up and reaching our creative potential. And then the fact of we need to take care of ourselves even more. The whole process of self-care comes into place.
Right.
And as a person who's been a yogi for since 2005, off and on, and more on in the last 5 years than maybe off. I have found yoga to be one of the things that has been a stabilizing force for me. And so I thought it would be good to talk about yoga and how that can help your for creativity, but most important, how that can be a part of your self-care routine. And so I invited my good friend here, Sherrellmoore-tucker, and she is a wellness educator and meditation guide who began her yoga practice and meditation due to her own experiences with health challenges and chronic pain. She's registered with the National Yoga Alliance and completed her first yoga training in 2010. Since that time, Sherrell's been offering community and corporate wellness programs locally and nationally. And welcome to my first Instagram Live.
Yes, awesome, Sharon. Congratulations.
Interview. And so really happy to have you here. Sherrell and I met through another friend. I hope that she comes on, Robin Bell, who is, I recently found out is a relative of mine. And, COVID has some magical stuff that has come up, beyond just dealing with the isolation and the stress of everything. But And so Sherrell and I have gotten to know each other throughout from the last year. We're both nature enthusiasts and
Yes.
hikers, and we've been really kind of doing this thing. So I thought it would be nice to invite her to do this interview because, you know, there's so many things, and, you know, there's so many, we hear about yoga all the time. There's so
Hmm.
much that we may or may not know about yoga. And I thought, let's just sort of introduce this and just help folks that may want to try yoga but didn't get a chance to, or something, they may have some myths or thoughts about it, but like, okay, yoga, and why is Sharon Burton is practically creative pushing yoga? I thought we were creativity, but the way I see creativity is much more broader than
Right.
the traditional coaching. I believe it's my approach to creativity coaching is much more of a holistic thing, looking at the body, soul, and spirit. And
Hmm.
so when we look at it that way, then okay, you got to deal with this, you got to deal with that. We're moving into a point of our as Gen Xers and baby boomers, we're moving to a point of our lives where wellness is very much a key to what we do and how that connects to our creativity. So, Sherrell, let's start with this.
Okay.
What is yoga?
Oh, what a great question, especially with it being National Yoga Month. And I promise you all, I'm not trying to evade the question, but let me just say this. If you ask a number of people what is yoga, you're going to get a different definition because many times the definition is based on people's personal experiences, or it can be either a combination of experience and maybe or solely research, just things that have been written that you can Google. So what I will say to answer the question is I will share my experience with modern yoga, which a lot of people don't really understand the evolution of yoga. People want to kind of talk a little bit like about the origin of yoga and where it came from and what the word yoga means. But yoga has definitely evolved. And here in the United States, most people are familiar with modern yoga, although there are traditional studios still around connected to certain lineages. And so, with my experience with yoga, I would say I would define yoga as a science. It's the science of using breath and movement to reconnect inwardly and outwardly. Just that simple.
I love that. I love that. And I can identify with that particular definition. Now, how
Yeah.
did you get involved with yoga? What is your story? I know that you had a military background
Right.
and a few other things, but how did you end up being a yoga instructor?
Yeah, it actually came by way of an invitation from my doctor. I had been diagnosed with osteoarthritis when I was serving at my last duty assignment in Fort Rucker in Alabama. And,
Hmm.
had gone through the standard protocol, whether it be injections, physical therapy, uh, lifestyle modifications, activity modifications. And so, kind of at a point where I felt like a lot of things weren't working, I asked my doctor, is there anything else that I can do to deal with the pain, the stiffness, the flares? And my doctor said, yeah, there's some free yoga classes here on base. I think that that would be helpful. And someone coming, so I have to kind of, full disclosure, I come from a movement background. So although yoga is so wide known now, back then I was not accustomed to yoga. I had never heard of it and didn't even know what it was. And this was probably back in 2000,
Okay.
2000 or 99. So
Okay.
think about, how far back that was where it wasn't the yoga that we know of now. So I was like,
Hmm.
okay, I wasn't really sure. But I went to some free classes, and that was my initial introduction to yoga to help me deal with flare ups from osteoarthritis.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
A young woman too, dealing with, some of that. But I think it's great. And I came to yoga. I came to yoga through my sister. When I first moved into the area, I had always wanted to do yoga. And
Okay.
where I was living in Atlanta before I moved here. Um, it was just such a drive to get to where I wanted to go to yoga that I just was like, I'm not going through that traffic and all that. And I wish I did. But there was, I was living in Cobb County, East Cobb at the time. And where I wanted to go was in the West End of Atlanta, if you know anything about the city. So,
Yeah.
and there was a wellness center there, and they were offering yoga, and I was like, oh. But when I came here, my sister knew someone that was offering lessons, and so I started going, and I learned Kundalini in the
Okay.
beginning, and then just was off and on, and then I'd say about 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, I was having a lot of I kind of got back to it partly because of an injury, or I have a herniated disc. And
Hmm.
so because of that, I was like, okay, I probably need to keep that stretching and everything. And I joined the local studio and started going more and all that kind of stuff. So,
Awesome.
after that, and I have to admit that I haven't had any back issues since then. So I know and I can attest to the power of yoga. Um, there are many types of yoga. I mentioned Kundalini,
Yeah.
and some people might be, what? Um, what are what are some of the more major popular, types of yoga? And if you can provide like a little brief thing about each of those, because I know people have seen those different things
Yeah.
and whatever, so.
Yeah, I'll just start kind of with the most simplest form, which is primarily taught in yoga studios, also community centers, maybe hospitals, Hatha Yoga, which is
Hmm.
a very simple definition. It's simple and slow, perfect for beginners. It really helps you with the basics of various yoga postures. So Hatha Yoga is something that I would definitely recommend for beginners. It's very gentle for those that are new, and so the opposite end of the spectrum for that is Vinyasa Flow, which I enjoy. Vinyasa Yoga is a rhythmic movement where you're moving synchronized with the breath. It can be kind of vigorous, or it can be slowed down, a slow Vinyasa Flow. So those are the the spectrums of kind of simple yoga and a more fast-paced yoga. And then you also have what's very popular is power yoga and hot yoga. So you have
Yes.
so you have power yoga that draws a lot of athletes because it really focuses on the physical posture. Power Yoga by Baron Baptiste is actually kind of, people can get certified in that type of yoga. Like I said, very physical, very athletic, and also hot yoga. Formerly, some people would call it Bikram yoga, where you have the hot yoga studio. That's a big introduction to yoga for a lot of people that are already active and athletes. I would say out of being a yoga practitioner and teaching yoga, I would say that the hot yoga classes, those were the classes where I saw men outnumber women. No other types of yoga classes. Lots at the time, I don't necessarily do a lot of hot yoga now, but when I was into it really deep, lots of men. I mean, I've never seen so many men taking yoga. But it's very challenging. You have your humidity, you have your temperature that's at like 101 or 102. A very hot room, and it's a sequence of postures, the same 26 postures, typically done twice for 90 minutes. But now they actually have like an express hot yoga where you only do the set once. Typically, those classes are not done with music, and it's simply the instructor speaking and no one else is talking. So it really is a certain level of discipline to it. Why I see a lot of athletes, someone like myself, drawn to that as well.
Mhm.
And then you have prenatal yoga. Some yoga practitioners, when they're ready to continue their family, they take on prenatal yoga. And then for some people that want a little extra support with giving birth, they start prenatal yoga for the very first time, and that's their first time even taking yoga. So
Oh,
prenatal yoga is actually um, very popular for people that are preparing to start families, and it's a great support system. And then you have restorative yoga. and you have Yin Yoga that's getting some popularity. There are some differences. Restorative Yoga. I hate the way that if you kind of Google some of these types of yoga, I don't necessarily agree with the definition. When I Googled it at first, it said restorative yoga, lazy man's yoga. And I hate that,
Oh, I don't like
that
that.
kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, I hate that kind of term. But what it is restorative yoga is good for rehabbing. So let's say you just had a health challenge or you're in physical therapy, or you just had an accident, allows for use of props to help you get into the postures with a sense of ease, and then you're able to hold those postures and just kind of breathe through it as you gain more movement and mobility in your body. So that's the purpose of restorative yoga. And then you have the other side of it, Yin Yoga, which is more so focused on timed poses, typically poses that are done in a seated or lying down position on the mat. Lots of people love Yin Yoga, especially people that have very busy minds. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful Yes, it's a beautiful discipline to Yin Yoga. I love Yin Yoga. You hold the poses from 1 up to 10 minutes. It's a great way to improve flexibility and mobility, and it's a practice that's great for beginners. So there are other types of yoga, but I would say what I had on my list are the more popular types that you'll find in a metropolitan area, I would say.
Yeah. And some of those yoga types that Sherrell mentioned, yin and restorative, are my favorites. I find that yin was really helpful for me with stretching
Hmm.
and really, and definitely calming, as they call in yoga world and meditation world, the monkey mind. And as creatives, a lot of times we're constantly thinking of things. We're constantly,
Hmm.
and even just in general, we're barraged with so much information. And it is a form of moving meditation.
It is.
I think, and I think yoga as a whole is, but particularly yin yoga, and it's also great for stretching. So as a person that had an injury that I needed to work on, I've been a yin yoga fan for quite some time. And matter of fact, that's what really kind of moved me back into yoga after kind of a brief little hiatus.
Hmm.
um, and I also love the other forms, hatha and the how do you pronounce that?
Vinyasa.
Thank you.
Vinyasa.
That
Yes.
that is one of my favorites as well. Well, one of the things that I thought was interesting was learning how the practice of yoga. Well, let me ask you this. There's been a lot of things said about yoga.
Hmm.
There's some people who feel that it's a practice dealing with Hinduism, that you
Right.
got to learn Hindu, or it's based on that spiritual practice, and that
Right.
you have to be into that in order to do yoga,
Right.
um, and or that it's a religion, or
Hmm.
it's a part of something, and that's not my religion, and I don't you know adhere, I don't
Absolutely.
support that. And what would you say about it for those that might feel that it exposes them, or it's a way of indoctrination into
Yeah.
something like that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get this question a lot. It is definitely something that is a valid question, especially in communities of color. Not to say
Hmm.
that all communities of color are super religious, but it is a concern for people that have that hold to a particular faith, some Christianity, some other belief systems. But what I typically tell people, if I'm having a conversation, there's a lot of angst there and a lot of just not really sure. I really don't necessarily try to get people to take a yoga class because there's already a lot of angst there. What I will
Hmm.
do is for people that are open to want to hear about my experience and what I know as a teacher from my expertise, then I will begin to share from a space of modern yoga, right?
Gotcha.
So some of the other types of yoga that we didn't talk about are sometimes the ones that people are typically referring to, like your Kundalini,
Mm-hmm.
Your Jiva Mukti, the different types of yoga that if you go to that particular yoga class, it may be heavy on the philosophy, it may be heavy on the chanting. That's typically the type of yoga that people may have some concerns about. Now, it doesn't mean that it's bad, but what I try to let people know is that, you know, that might be some of the tradition of those particular lineages, but there's so many other different types of yoga that if you are not interested in learning a particular philosophy, that there is modern yoga that is, you know, you can practice hatha, where there's probably no chanting, no philosophy teaching, and the focus is really on the mind and the body and the breath work. So for those that are open to that, we have a dialogue, we have a conversation, because I realize that there are some that will never really want to hear what you have to say. There's some that just are staunched in their belief system that yoga is a religion, it's indoctrination, it's demonic, it opens you up to demonic
Mm-hmm.
possession and oppression. And this is just the way that it is. And they're not open to a conversation. So why even kind of waste your breath? But for those that are interested, I try to give them an overview, just like you asked the question of me, what are some other forms of yoga that would support my health and wellness goals that don't take the place of my faith, and I can still
Right.
feel authentic in what I'm doing. And for
Mm-hmm.
those, I have those authentic conversations.
Thank you for that. And I think it's important, to recognize that, the different types may have some elements to them that may, make a person feel uncomfortable or
Right.
whatever. And I think that's why it's important to understand the different types and to zero in on what would be most comfortable for you.
Yes.
And I think one thing that I could advise to people that might be interested or new to yoga is to look at YouTube. And I know you
Hmm.
have a strong presence on YouTube, but to maybe do something like, Hatha Yoga
Hmm.
or, Yin Yoga, something like
Hmm.
that. So you can get an example of how that practice is done, and you can decide whether or not that's comfortable for you.
And typically when it comes up, you know, if you ask someone, do you believe that breathing and moving and stretching are bad, or do you have experience with doing it? You know, or were you ever part of sports, or what did you do for fun, some type of activity? You can kind of equate it back to people's experience, letting them know that it's all about the intention behind the movement. For people that don't necessarily have some type of movement background or experience, it can be a little harder, because I find it
Hmm.
very, very difficult for when you ask the person, tell me what is demonic about child's pose, when you may typically see this pose done after a cycling class, a dance class, a forward fold, a tree pose after a particular fitness class. And then that kind of does get them scratching their head like, yeah, I've done these similar things in other fitness formats. And so
Hmm.
it opens the discussion for, it's not necessarily about the pose being demonic, but what is your intention for it as you see it throughout various fitness modalities.
Good point.
Yeah.
The other form of yoga, which we didn't discuss, but I am certified as a Yoga Nidra guide, is Yoga Nidra. And
Yes. Mhm.
Robin Bell, who we talked about earlier, is great at Yoga Nidra. I learned the Divine Sleep Yoga Nidra this year, and I will be offering a class, matter of fact, for those creatives who want to learn about that. And that's more of a meditative kind
Right.
of thing. There are no movements. So if
Hmm.
movements turn you off for whatever reason,
That could be a great alternative. Yeah.
that's a great alternative because it's really your mind that's going through yoga,
Hmm.
not your body. And we take you through several different layers of consciousness. And not going to go over that today, but that's something to take a look at if you are into meditation, or if you're comfortable with more of a meditative kind of practice. Yoga Nidra is perfect for that, and
Mhm.
a wonderful way to open yourself to creativity. Now,
Yes.
I am going to segue to the benefits of yoga.
Hmm.
I think people know yoga's good, but I
Yeah.
don't know if people really understand all of the benefits of yoga, and particularly for creatives. And again, a lot of us are highly sensitive. A lot of us are empathic. And for us to even do a lot of our work, we have a unique way of connecting to our environment and what we see and what we hear. And especially during these times, it's at a whole different level for many of us.
Yeah.
And so I would like for you to talk a little bit about the benefits of yoga, and even if there are some perspectives that you think might be especially of interest to creative people.
Yeah. So, one of the things, when you have a yoga practice, or let's just say you just go to one class, it's not uncommon for people to feel the immediate benefits of improved sleep. And as creatives or someone that is experiencing burnout, sleep is a part of it.
Yeah.
It's really hard to be creative when you're sleep deprived, and many of us walk around not realizing that we're sleep deprived. Another benefit of yoga is many of us don't have relaxation techniques that we do on a regular basis. So I'm a big proponent of sleep hygiene. With some yin yoga at night is a great way to ease into gentle, peaceful, restful sleep. It's a great way to just soften the muscles, releasing tension. Because when you're tensed up, it's very hard for you to be creative. It's hard for
Yeah.
you to even process that in your body. So I think those are some of the key components. When your body is relaxed and calm, so is your mind, and from that calmness, creative springs forth.
Absolutely.
When you're tense and you're trying to make things happen, we all know when you hit that door, nothing happens when you're forcing something to try to happen. So yoga, some of the benefits, sleep, when you have more of a consistent practice, you'll definitely feel it in your body. And when you feel good in your body and you're less tense and less stressed, it helps you have a different outlook on things. So it allows you the ability to change your perspective. Where there once was maybe gloom and doom, maybe there's more optimism now. And then the creativity, springs forth from optimism. So
Mhm.
those are just some of the benefits that I've seen from people when they practice yoga either one time or they have a consistent practice.
Very good. I also encourage people, those of, there's always the cynic in the room, if you're interested in learning more from a scientific or research base,
Hmm.
do a Google search on the
Oh yeah.
benefits of yoga and creativity, and you'll find some interesting studies and some interesting information that supports that practice. Yoga is one of those practices that it almost can heal what ails you, no matter what it is. But I really do recommend it for those that are creative, and because it's any kind of meditative practice that keeps us from constantly overthinking
Hmm.
everything is really something that creatives should really consider doing. And
Yeah, and
I think wellness, I don't know if mindfulness and wellness it's becoming more, much more commonplace now,
hmm.
and including that. But for a long time, it just seemed, there's the creativity and then there's this wellness thing over there. And,
Right.
but when we're living in a complicated world, it's very important to take a look at all these different kinds of things that can help us with our creativity. And a lot of it is really emptying the mind to allow the muse to come in and
Yeah.
to inspire us. But when you're, full of all kinds of stuff, you can't do it. That's just like, uh, I do a lot of courses on The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, and she talks a lot about the morning pages. And so you'll see on my feed every now and then I'm talking about it, but it's really a journaling practice where you just sort of empty out your mind with conscious um, writing, unconscious writing, where you're just writing whatever comes into your mind. And it's really about emptying the well so you can fill it up again with creativity or, ideals and whatever. Well, yoga is one of those things that you can do for your body that, the movement, there's so many more studies now talking about we keep so much stress in our bodies.
Oh yeah,
It's not,
there's issues in the tissues. There's issues
there
in the
you go. There you
tissues.
go.
And
And
there's a lot of science that you mentioned with the brain, with the gray matter. The more people meditate, the gray matter is more in, I think it's the prefrontal cortex that helps
yeah,
with focus and concentration, which is
there you
key
go.
to creativity. So
Pivoting.
yes, there definitely is science to support it. So what started out as anecdotal is now supported by science.
Yes, it is. And so it's not just woo-woo mumble
Woo woo.
jumble activity. It
Yeah.
it does have a science base that supports it. And so again, as we work through, all these different issues that's coming at us, we're at a point of our lives where, yeah, we have environmental concerns, we have COVID, we have, social political issues. And it's not like it used to be where you can kind of handle one thing. You just got everything coming at you.
Right.
And so as creatives, and that's one of the things that's really important to me as a creativity coach, is to say, okay, you might want to try yoga. You might want to try meditation. You might want to try something else. Um, because the old ways may not be working for you in this very
Absolutely.
complex world that we're living in. And we have these modalities, these practices that have been around for centuries, and that is really important. Now, one thing I do want to address, because I think it's important, a lot of people stay away from yoga because, they see these slim, you know, people that are, they look like they just eat lettuce for breakfast and all that other stuff, and
Right.
they're in shape, and and I think things have changed a lot.
They
We're
have.
seeing much more yogis and people actually becoming more visible. Whether you are someone that is, that doesn't look like the typical yoga person that we saw at least 10 years ago. Can you
Yeah.
speak to that, and particularly for those who may feel that they may not meet what a typical
Yeah.
yogi would appear to be?
Yeah, it's definitely evolved, I would say, really like in the past 10 years, since the time when I actually started. I started teaching in 2010, and now you see a diverse population. It used
Mm,
to be in the beginning, you may see maybe a person of color or a Black person on the cover of Yoga Journal, and they still are, just a few, but it's definitely evolved and changed because yoga is for everybody. So now you see various body types,
yeah,
uh, various abilities. So yoga is definitely something that if you do your research, if you're just depending on social media to just kind of give it to you, you're probably going to get the standard kind of yoga body. But if you do your research and you're looking for a particular type of yoga teacher or community, you can definitely find it. There are now people of color and Black people that are teaching yoga, whether you're full figure, whether you're really thin, whether you have certain abilities, whether you're working through health challenges. There's yoga for everything. A lot of the classes that I taught early on were at senior citizen centers. So
hmm
chair yoga is not just for the seniors, but chair yoga could just be because you're stuck at a desk all day, right?
Yeah.
Tech neck is a thing. Is a
Yes,
real
it is.
thing.
Yes, it
Tech
is.
neck, frozen shoulder, losing mobility in your shoulder girdle. Those are the things that I feel like people can focus a little bit more on versus just, well, I just want to try yoga because they say that it's good for health. But what about your health is a concern to you? And the more you niche down, the more that you're going to be more at peace kind of with your decision and the community that you find. Because there are different types of yoga teachers out there. There are men that are teaching yoga now. There are young people that are teaching yoga. There are older people that are teaching yoga, specifically the 40 and over, which is kind of
Yep.
my demographic. Along with September being National Yoga Month, it's also Pain Awareness Month. I've been doing, more activism when it comes to the Arthritis Foundation and the U.S. Pain Foundation. So a particular group of people that deal with chronic pain, there are yoga classes for you too, right? Because yoga can be modified. So it's not just all about the power yoga, being athletic, being super
Mhm.
thin. There is variety now. Could it be better? Yes, it can be better. But has modern yoga come a long way in the past 10, 15 years? Yes, it has. I can only speak for here in the United States. But I know in the area that I live here in the DC metro area, you got some variety. You got Kundalini, and then down the street you got Black Girl Yoga or Black Girl Magic or Trap Yoga, or you got classes being offered at Kaiser Permanente for yoga for
Mhm.
chronic pain. It's a smorgasbord. It's just about you doing the research to find out what you need.
Absolutely. And there's a movement called accessible yoga, which is
Yes.
which is really encouraging people of different sizes, shapes, whatever your background is. You don't have to be in the burbs and, run to yoga class. And I mean, there are so many different classes that are being offered in urban communities as well as rural communities
Hmm.
as well. And so it's something to really keep in mind that yoga is not just for a certain demographic, it's for all of us.
It
And
is.
as creative people, I strongly suggest it because it is a way to unwind and to clear the mind so you can allow the muse to come in.
And,
And
and, and one other thing that I want to say,
sure,
Sharon, some yoga classes, maybe not your typical weekly night class, but maybe these more so yoga experiences and workshops. The yoga community is doing a great job with doing more collaborative type of work. So it's not uncommon to see yoga and journaling workshops kind of coming
yeah,
together, birthing that creativity from movement, and then resting in that stillness and being able to creatively write or to creatively move at the end of a yoga workshop. So that is what I'm most excited about. And as you mentioned at the beginning of our time together, even me reaching out to local hiking groups and combining, that movement in nature with movement on the mat in nature. So maybe, creatives that may not be ready for like a yoga class and may feel intimidating, even doing it virtually, see if you can find those workshops that combine some different things that you may like. I know yoga and journaling, allowing time for reflection, has become very popular as well.
yes. And I'm so happy that you mentioned that. I took my first yoga and hiking class about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was just life changing. And matter of fact, Sherrell here actually did one yesterday. I wanted to go so bad, but I had another engagement, and it just didn't allow for that. But that is a good way to combine different passions or to be in different kinds of situations. It's sort of touch and go right now with in
Right.
inside studio kinds of things. But really, there's been some classes that have been done outdoors. My
Hmm.
sister, who is a yoga teacher as well, she does some in local parks. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can, access yoga. I think the other thing to keep in mind is, since yoga is being has really changed and has really grown to be more inclusive, you're probably not going to be the only one that has it, maybe not have the yoga body or whatever that's going to be in class, because I know some people say, well, I don't want to be the only one that I feel like I'm too fat to do that. And there's probably nobody else like that. Believe me, every body, as they say, is going to be represented in class, and not everybody's going to be able to do handstands and back bends and
Right.
stuff like that. A good yoga instructor is going to be able to give you alternative kinds of movement
Right.
cues. So you don't have to feel that, well, I got to twist myself into a pretzel and I don't know, my back is, a good instructor, and I'm going to keep saying that, is going to identify the needs of his or her class and be able to provide alternative movement. So that's not an excuse either.
No,
That
it's
I
not.
can't do the moves and they're going to have me doing all. No, they, most, just about all yoga instructors today are trained to provide alternatives for people that may have different limitations, and that's the beauty
Absolutely.
of it. It's not like it was, again,
Hmm.
and I agree, Sherrell. It has a long way to go, but I think there's been so much strides that have been made to make it more diverse and more opening and inclusive for all people.
Yeah.
And, again, I would do some searches on YouTube just to get a
Hmm.
sense of the style. You may even start following those people.
Yeah.
Um, you may want to do, of course, some yoga searches in your community. Eventbrite, when you talk about
Yes.
unique kinds of combinations like hiking and yoga or journaling or even creative activities in yoga. Um, Eventbrite is one of the best ways that you can find out about all these different kinds of activities that are happening, not only in your community, but now with COVID, there's a lot of it is virtual. So you
Yeah.
can get a chance to connect with other people while learning the practice.
Hmm.
Um, I really appreciate this. This has been really fun to do. Sherrell, how can people learn more about you
Yeah.
and what you do as a yoga instructor? And also, I know what the question was. You're a writer. You wrote a book, correct?
I did, and I write blogs and I contribute to different publications. Yes.
Okay. Um, how does yoga help you with that?
Oh man. Yoga really helps me with writing because one of the things that yoga does, it allows you to kind of shed, you mentioned this before, to kind of shed off those things that you've accumulated throughout the day. I know that my pastor talks about gathering our scattered self. So you go to work and you're kind of in this meditative loop of whatever your work is, whatever your expertise is in. And so people are pulling on you for that, to analyze, to take in data, to write, to do different things. And many times, if we're honest with ourselves, we come home and we're still in that same meditative loop, that same
Mhm.
workplace loop. And, if we're blessed enough to have people around us, I know my husband will tell me, hey, you're not at work. Like whether it's my tone or what I said, so yoga helps you to kind of shed off those things and allows you to gather your authentic self again
Ooh, I love that.
and return to self. And so, and as yourself, because I believe that we were birthed from a creative being, we are
Mhm.
creative people, fearfully and wonderfully made. If we can just get back to our authentic selves, the creativity is there. And so for me, it's there as well. Like I said, I went to a performing arts school, so I kind of, I don't
So
necessarily
now
have
I
an
didn't know that. I didn't
I
know that.
yeah, I wouldn't
Oh,
say that I have an edge, but I knew early on. I went to I auditioned. It was just like Fame back in the day. I went
yeah.
audition, and so I went to a performing arts school at eighth grade and graduated. And so I've always known how important important creativity is and how creativity can flow from writing, from movement, from drawing, from different things. And movement is creative. When you're in dance class, which I
Yeah.
took ballet for 5 years, and it's like create a move, like what do you feel? Movement allows you to get in touch with your emotions and your experiences, and from that you're able to create something new, something fresh. And although it may look like what someone else is doing, that other person doesn't have your unique experience. So the production and the manifestation is going to look different, and it's going to feel different. And that's the beauty of creativity. So for me, movement, being out in nature, yoga, it gets my creative juices flowing. I'm able to kind of release and shed everything that I was to everybody for that day and just get back to me. What is Sherrell thinking? What am I feeling? How do I want to move? How do I what am I seeing? What's my perspective? And so when you're able to return to self, that's where the creativity flows.
Oh, I love that. I love that. When you're able to return to self,
Yeah.
that is where that's the quote of the day. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to wrap this up. This has been such a great conversation, and I'm so happy that you joined me today. And, in honor of National Yoga Month. And again, how can people find out more about you if they want to, connect with you as a yoga teacher? And I know that you're based in the DC area with me,
Yes.
but you also, you have a strong virtual presence. Share how people can find out about you.
Yes, so I would love if people are interested in learning more about me to subscribe to my YouTube channel. If it is of interest to you, I'm doing a series on pain this month on my channel. I also have a meditation playlist of some of the frequently asked questions about meditation. And I've had this YouTube channel, this is going on the second year, so it's a great way for me to offer education, free resources, and some yoga classes. They aren't, all an hour. You can get the benefits of yoga in just 10, 15, 20 minutes. So if you want to kind of ease into the practice, I definitely have some content there to kind of help you ease into yoga in a way that can fit into your schedule. And then I'm here on Instagram, so you can just follow me at Sherrellmoore-tucker. I offer content on here, inspiration, encouragement for people to engage in self-care because it is your right. And you can learn more about me on my website, Sherrellmoore-tucker.com.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. And just a few notes for those that are listening and watching. I will also be, again, offering a Yoga Nidra class on, I believe it's the last Wednesday of the month on September 29th. So if you want to learn more about Yoga Nidra, which is a meditative practice, you do not have to do the asanas or the moves.
Mm-hmm.
It's just about staying still and meditating and using your mind to open for creativity. Would love to have you at that. I will be sharing more about that this week. And also, as far as podcasts go, I have a current podcast with Maya Brewer, who is a renowned, phenomenal yoga leader. And I will say that very strongly. She was one of my first yoga teachers. I met her through Kripalu Health and Wellness Center in Massachusetts. And so if you do a search on the Spark Your Creative podcast, you can listen to that interview. And it's interesting because she talks about yoga actually leading her to her creative practice. She's a jazz singer on the side. I don't
Yes.
know if you knew that. I didn't know that for a long time. She entered that, over 40. And yoga just gave her the courage to try something new creatively. So, there's so many paths with this, and there's so many things that is very helpful for people. If you're not following me already, I can be found at Spark Your Creative on Facebook and on Instagram. And my website is sparkyourcreative.com. And I am on SoundCloud with the Spark Your Creative podcast, where you can listen to that and more podcasts on a variety of different topics dealing with creativity, and also interviews with some wonderful creative people that are doing some great things in the world. Once again, thank you so much, Sherrell, for doing this with me. We got to go hiking soon.
Yes.
And yeah, that's one of my hiking buddies right there. Thank you all for listening and checking in. If you have any questions, I don't know, I guess I should ask that real quick. If anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask about yoga or creativity or both, or anything that we can answer before we log off for the evening.
Questions.
You can always, I hope I can post this on my Facebook, my Instagram. So you're welcome to continue to ask questions if you get a chance to hit the replay and see this if something comes up and you're like, oh, I need to know about that. I think Sherrell did a wonderful job answering a lot of the questions that sort of commonly come up, particularly folks that are new to yoga. Again, I can't say enough about it. I'm not about pushing anything, but I do highly encourage that. Just one anecdotal thing. I recently injured my shoulder. Actually, it might have been a frozen shoulder thing. I don't know what it was, but anyway. And hurt myself actually doing some other kind of workout, not yoga, but something else. And because the way my spine is, my chiropractor was like, how in the world can you stand straight? Because I have a curvature also in my spine that, I didn't really know it had kind of, was there, and that's contributing to some of the herniated stuff. And he was like looking at me like, you shouldn't really be standing straight at all. And I said, the only thing I can think of, I said, is yoga. I've been practicing yoga for a number of years, and I think it has helped me kind of, self-regulate or, keep my posture in check.
Yeah.
And he said, it has to be. You need to continue to do that. I said, oh, yeah, I will. But it just sort of it's a mini example. But, when you get to be our age, we have these different ailments. And not only for our body, but again, for our mind. Give yoga a shot, and if you listen to the podcast, Maya also says, even if you don't do yoga right away, do something else and work your way towards yoga. It doesn't have to be right away. So thank you, my friend.
Thank you,
Thank you all
Sharon.
that joined us today. I hope this was helpful, and happy National Yoga Month, and take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.